I agree with Val. There have been a lot of people who have helped me and that whom I've really learned from. Two local people who I have great admiration for and whom I think I've learned a lot from are Mary Louise Shirk and Tina Washington, who are friends of mine and who, to me, on a local level, have exemplified women who really just wouldn't accept the status quo, who said, I can do this and I can do it better. And if you don't know, Mary Louise started the Boost program in Lebanon, which eventually became Head Start. And she started it with a lot of opposition from the Mayo City Councilman and people who said, we don't need that. And she said, these young children who cannot afford it need early education. And having been in early education early in my career, I totally believe in early education, and I'm really happy that I'm working with the Y where we are very committed to that. So I see that she really blazed a trail. And she continues, even though she's had a stroke and has very little use of one side of her body, to read, to be engaged every time I visit her, and Kim will attest to this, and those of you who see her, she wants to know what's going on, why isn't this happening, she wants to make some phone calls, and she is, I mean, she's doing it. She's in her book club, and she's calling people, and she's saying, hey, I don't think this is right, we shouldn't be doing this. You know, she is really an amazing advocate for learning, for children, for this community. And Tina Washington, very similarly, she's a great teacher, was the Teacher of the Year in Pennsylvania, and has just always been herself, and in her retirement been extremely active in supporting early learning and higher education through LTC, and just is very committed, and are just people who continue to be curious. And the last person I have to say is that my mother, we just celebrated my mother's 100th birthday in New Mexico. And as I said to her when at the little speech at the family dinner we had, I said, you know, we're not really celebrating the years, we're celebrating the life you've lived. Because my mother is still driving, she still lives on her own, she's still volunteering. Up until last year, she tutored first and second graders. This is the last year she hasn't gone into a school and done it. And it's just because her knees are given out. But she's still very mobile. She still volunteers and helps with several museums. And one of the things that I've seen in my mother is that she has taken good care of herself, yes, and she's been very blessed with great genes. I hope I got it too. But more importantly, she stayed very engaged. She almost never watches television because she's too busy reading. She's in 2 book clubs, and she's also just a volunteer. She started a program for young mothers in Texas where we lived 25, 30 years ago when that wasn't being done, of going in, something very similar to Men Are a Mother, going in and helping young teen mothers with their, you know, learning how to mother a child when they were so young. She's just been someone who always believed in her community and stayed involved and kept her mind engaged and was always more concerned about other people and their welfare than necessarily her own. And so I think for me that's been a huge inspiration to watch these women who have aged in very active, committed ways and continue to their commitment to the community.
Growing as a leader and making sure that you don't stagnate. And stagnate is a word I would not use to describe any one of you.
Well, for me, I think I just have to be always listening to other people, and I have to work hard at that because you know how much I like to talk. I think if you're open to hearing, especially younger people, and one of the things I also learned from my mother is she said, well, you just have to keep making younger friends because your friends are dying off. And I really think that to somebody that's very true, you really need to listen to younger people with new ideas and better ideas. And I was on a board for 8 years with Leadership Lebanon Valley, which I absolutely loved. And I was sitting in one of the meetings one day, and somebody was saying, well, I think we should do this and this and this with Health and Human Services Day. And I'm like, and I almost out of my mouth that the words that I hate the most in the world, well, we don't do it that way. We've always done it this way. And I didn't say it. I thought, I have to get off this board. It is time for someone else to take the reins here, because when I'm sitting there thinking, we've always done it this way, this is a great way to do it. We shouldn't think about doing it differently. That's a bad sign. So I think always being open. sometimes the old way is the best way, but I think always being open to other people's ways of doing things. And I watch a lot of the people in this room as how they handle situations, how they manage trying, challenging issues, and I just work on trying to be that way myself, or try that and say, if I admire that, then maybe I can try harder to do that. I have a lot of failures in some way or another. I tend to be pretty determined when I really want to do something. When I was with my previous job at United Way, I often was pushing the envelope. And I did want to do a community needs assessment. I thought it was essential to what we did, and I was not getting a lot of support for it. So I can't say I approached it the best way, because I just basically said, we're going to do this, and I started forming committees and raising the money for it, and pretty soon it was sort of like, well, we have to do it because look at this, she's got everything in place. So I have a tendency to do that, which is not always the best way. But sometimes I feel like you have to kind of bang against the door and say, no, really, this is meaningful. If you really believe in what you're doing, and you're not doing it for your own self-aggrandizement, but really for what you think the community needs and what your organization should be doing as an organization, I feel pretty passionate about that. I did with United Way, and I do now with the Y, that we have an image and a purpose to achieve, that we have to keep pushing that a little bit further and being what we say we are. So I tend to be a little bit hard-nosed about some of those things. I have certainly been criticized. I'm fortunate I don't have a real public and visible high-level job like Mary Ann. I greatly admire those people who are superintendents and mayors and city council people and school board, because they are like, they just walk around with targets on their back all the time. And I know that's so hard, because you cannot please everyone. And I think that's the other thing. You have to kind of, I think I always have to go back and think, what is really my motivation if I'm really being criticized or meeting resistance? I think it's very important to look, because there have been times when I think my motivation was more something I thought I wanted that was important to me, and not necessarily the right thing for everyone else and for the organization. But then there are times when you think, no, I really think this is, and I'm not doing it just for me. And then sometimes you have to find a way to communicate that. I think the hardest thing is to try to communicate to those who are resisting you respectfully and fairly why what your cause is or what your point is. So I've sometimes not done that well, and sometimes I've done better at it. But I think, if you believe in something, you have to push for it. But always look at your own personal motives for it, too.
Thank you. I'm going to pick on Mary Ann and Val next. Asking how you stay motivated and inspired.
I think the biggest challenge is the pace of change. The fact that everything is moving much faster. That makes me sound really old, I know. We have to keep up with so many changes in the environment and what's happening, and certainly, of course, with media and the level of expertise you need in social media and just all types of media through the internet. And so I think it's always a challenge to us to stay on top of that, and at the same time not lose sight of our values and what's really important within our own organization, what our values, what we're doing there, or within our community. Because I think sometimes we get so caught up in the newest thing and being on top of it and being part of the latest craze that we sometimes lose track of who are we really, and are we sticking to our mission, or are we sticking to what's important to us and what's meaningful to our community. And I think there's going to be, and still I think has started to be, more of a return in some ways to some of the more traditional, simpler things that reflect our community or reflect our own values. So it's balancing those things. So I would say that's the challenge, and on a personal level, I think it's a challenge for all of us who are trying to balance a lot of things. And I know it's not just women that go through this, but I think women who are out in the working world continue despite everything that's changed, to really struggle to balance our home life and our personal lives and our work lives, and to try to hit that good balance where we're working as hard as everybody else, we're accomplishing as much, but we're also in the back of our heads always thinking about who needs to be picked up, or who needs to be here, or how are they doing in school, or what's happening there. And there's that sense that's always hanging with us. And so balancing that with the fast pace of everything, I think, is a huge challenge for all of us.
Thank you.
I wish I had patience. I wish I were a more patient person. I can get very impatient about things I think should happen, or people who I think are not, doing what I want them to do. I don't think I have the patience, and I wish I were a better listener too. I think I can always be.
If you're an impatient person, I'm in really big trouble.
I just hide it, but it's there. Those who know me well know it's there for sure. But one of the things I've been reading lately, that a book I just started, but it's called The Path Appears, and it's a wonderful book that these two authors, if you ever read Half the Sky, which is another wonderful book about programs that people are doing in the world to help women, especially young women, develop, and especially in Africa, but all over the world, in India, and to really help women who have been severely damaged. And I think this is an issue that we all need to be very conscious of, especially as women and people who are concerned with women, that there are parts of the world where women are literally being, Boko Haram and those kinds of things, being damaged, being taken, being raped, being mutilated, being, all kinds of things. So I think we all have to be aware of that and remember that. But Half the Sky kind of talks about the programs where they're really helping women come back and re-enter the world. But this book, A Path Appears, is really about what every single one of us can do as an individual, and the fact that, and I really think this is so true, one thing, helping one person, doing one thing for one person, is how it gets done. And it's I think we all belong to organizations and try to do as much to support them and to do things on a broader scale. And it's not that that's not important, but truly, if every single one of us, when we saw that opportunity, and I'm probably preaching to the choir, because I can look around the room and say, I think everybody in this room is doing that and has been doing it for a long time. But I think it's always important to reinforce with our children and with the people we know that you don't have to change the world, because it's too hard to say, if I can't change that, and if I can't change the world, which I get impatient, which this goes back, this is how it ties to what you ask, is, then maybe I can't do anything. I just can't do anything about that. I can't do anything about women in Africa, or I can't do anything about this situation. But we can do it one person at a time, even if we don't think we're affecting somebody in Africa. Maybe it's just something I say to somebody at the Y, or a little girl that comes by, and I tell her how she's so, she's so smart, and what a good answer that was that you gave to me. Or just every little step that we take to reinforce the positives and the good that we have to give out is going to be exponentially effective. And it does lead to the bigger things. And Rita is this perfect example of that. She has been a tireless advocate for those with mental health issues, and for children in particular, and abused children and sexually abused children and adults. And she has done it from the kids she was helping in school, and it's just grown from there. And I think that's something we can all do. So we have to have patience, because sometimes I get impatient that we're not moving fast enough, or we're not doing it fast enough. I see diversity in our Y as a remarkable thing, and I don't think our community is embracing it enough. I don't think our Y is embracing it as much as we could to say, we try as a culture, but I think we need to keep saying, this is a good thing that we have people from all over the world living here. This is a good thing that we have a place for everybody here, and that it's going to enrich our culture. So I get impatient sometimes when I feel like everybody's not on the same page as I am, but all I can do is do what I can do. And but that's probably my biggest failure.